Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody give me a thumbs up? Can everybody hear everything good?
I hear you. All right, it's 3 o'clock. Can you hear me okay? Okay. 3 o'clock, let's get this virtual special board meeting for the Piedmont Public Schools, I'll call it, to order. Reminder, this meeting will be conducted entirely via video conferencing. Patrons may watch the Zoom meeting via live stream, www.piedmontschools.org. Also, another reminder, in the event the audio signal from the meeting is interrupted, a maximum of 30 minutes will be used to attempt to restore the audio. If that time elapses, the meeting will reconvene on Tuesday, July 13th, 2020 at 9 a.m. Via video conference. So with that being said, can I get a roll call, please?
Sure. Stephen Cox.
Here.
Greg Duffy.
I'm not getting any sound on mine, so I'm here.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Dustin is here. Zach Mine.
Getting no
Here.
audio.
And Jared Mosier.
Here. Greg, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Greg?
Yeah, now I can. We're good.
Okay. All right. It kind of be hard to have a meeting with not being able to hear it, right? Unless you're good at reading lips.
I was
All right.
watching you close.
Okay. Item 2 is board reorganization. Discuss and vote on. So a couple of things I'll just talk about here is, typically, historically, we've done this 2 different ways as a board. Years ago, we used to do it, whoever we thought was the right person for that position, the board nominated and the board voted those people into those roles. The other way is we just kind of followed the term years and just, slotted people in, and we just, each person is taking their turn. I think, to me, it's really should be the right person for the right position at the right time. Certain things come up in people's lives, certain issues, conditions, with board members falling off or on, or whatever the case might be, circumstances changes. So, my recommendation is look at these roles, look at these positions, and nominate that person that you think is right to fill that role. So with that being said, we will discuss and vote on the Board of Education president. I'm looking for, and anybody have anything else to say on what I just talked about before we start this process?
Yeah, Jared, I'll jump in and go first. Being obviously having served as the clerk the past year, I'm happy to do that again if that's what's asked of. I'm also happy to step aside either way. I think from my perspective, I do think it's worthy to have a discussion about um, you know, naming, or at least nominating, I should say, and voting on the positions in the sense that you talked about, as far as, you know, who has the time and the energy and things of that nature. So I'll just say from a, you know, I know we're talking about the president now. I do think, but my opinion is we should at least consider that to some degree. And I say that with the understanding that, you know, if we did it the other way, you know, I would be essentially be vice president this year and president the next year. I don't really think that's the right way to do it, to be honest. And but I'm not one that really cares about the titles either. To me, it's more about what makes the most sense from an efficiency standpoint, from an organizational standpoint. So I'll pause there and let everybody else jump in.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with Dustin. You put that really well. I think it's, you know, we all have full-time jobs. We're all busy doing things, and I think some of us fit roles better than others. So I would agree with Dustin on that.
I would go ahead and make the motion to nominate Jared to do another term as president.
All right. Motion by Zach. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Dustin. Can we vote?
Stephen,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Dustin is a yes, Zach,
Yes.
and Jared.
Yes. All right. The next role is vice president.
Oh, go ahead, Jared. Sorry.
I guess I'd like to nominate Dustin for vice president.
I'll second that.
Can we vote?
Yes. Stephen,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Dustin is a yes, Zach,
Yes.
and Jared.
Yes. Next is Board of Education, discuss and vote on Board of Education clerk.
I want to make a nomination for Zach Mott to be the clerk.
Second.
Dustin, motion by Dustin. Was that second by Stephen or Greg?
Greg.
Second by Greg. Can we vote?
Stephen,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Dustin is a yes, Zach,
Yes.
and Jared.
Yes. And discuss and vote on Board of Education deputy clerk. Looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion. We nominate Greg Duffy as the deputy clerk.
Okay, motion for Greg Duffy by Stephen Cox. Can we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dustin. Can we vote?
Jared, I'm sorry, Stephen, my bad.
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Dustin is a yes, Zach,
Yes.
and Jared.
Yes. Okay, so let me make sure I got this right. That's Stephen Cox as clerk.
No, it's
Yep.
Zach is
I'm sorry.
clerk, I think.
I'm sorry. Zach is clerk. Deputy
I'll gladly
clerk.
let Steve, if we want to revote.
Greg is deputy clerk. VP is Dustin. Jared president. And Stephen is member. Did I get that right?
Think so.
Sounds right to
Stephen,
me.
Greg, Zach, Dustin, Jared. I say that and get those right because Zach, you'll have to follow that order for the rest of the meeting.
All right.
Okay. Consent agenda, item 3. Discuss and vote to approve or not to approve all consent items. These items may be approved by one board motion unless any board member desires to have a separate vote on any or all of these items. James, any of these you want to point out?
Yes, thanks, Jared. Start work bottom up. Kelly Education Agreement. We didn't bring that last month. We were kind of back and forth on it, whether or not we wanted to recommend that expense for this year. At this point, we do want to recommend. It is for a substitute service, basically an employment service. It'll still be our own. They will use any subs that we have used in the past, but then they will also have a larger pool to pull from. They do all the training. They pay for all of our software. For that, there is a markup when it comes to subs. Some districts that we've looked at that have done this said they broke even. Some said they've saved money. It looks like it will cost us a little bit when I run the figures. And really the only way of determining that is to go a year with that and see. But there are some costs. Our workers' comp goes down just a little bit, not much. But some of the other costs are ASOP, which is our front line. We won't have to pay that contract. That's a $12,000 contract. To put it, this year we spent with ASOP, which was a shortened year, we spent just right over 100,000 in subs, $100,509. With using, if you use the same numbers and you're comparing apples to apples, and we use Kelly Education Services, that would have been 114,000 to us. The benefit of it is they handle all the training, they pay for all the background checks, they take on all the liability of the substitutes with that, and their fill rate is much higher at other schools than we are able to do ourselves, just because we're not able to pull the same amount of people that they can. And so the fill rate's supposed to be higher. When we looked at that, yes, it is a little more expensive this year. Obviously, we are going to need subs more than we have probably ever have and probably ever will with the situation that we're facing. It's going to be very hard to get subs. I'm not sure they can either. But if they can't, we don't pay them. I mean, if they provide a sub, we pay them. If they don't, and we cover our own classes, obviously we still take care of that ourselves if we do it with our teachers. And so that would be my recommendation, is to go forward with that. We try it for a year. If it's an absolute disaster, obviously, and we can, even as the year goes on, if we find out it's not working, we have a clause that we can get out of it if we need to. But I don't think we can fill all our classes of the absences we're going to have this year, even with them. And I certainly don't think we can without them. Anybody questions on that?
James, just a comment, maybe not a question, but I think one of the special things about the district is a lot of the subs are parents and local community people that are in the classroom with our our students, and I think we got some good ones. I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of having those same people in our buildings.
Yeah, they want our list, and that's what they're all going to start with, their list of subs that we have. And we haven't had our biggest problem is more when we get to say Stone Ridge, in that area. We don't have as much, and we've started seeing more and more parents as they went back to work are not on our sub list, and it's just made it harder and harder. These last few years, they will come to sub training, but then they won't follow through as far as with the background check and some things like that go. But we will certainly be using all the ones we have in the past. They will be at the top of the list.
Okay.
If I read their exhibits correctly, basic pay rate for all these positions will be virtually the same as what we were paying. Is that correct?
It is the same. Yeah, we gave them those rates.
Yeah. They're just going to take a markup of 37 to 39% or somewhere in there. Yeah.
Correct.
So the $14,000 difference, I mean, you can make that up pretty quick in tying up people's time to do training and background checks and messing with a lot of the administrative functions.
Yeah, and it's the direct deposits, the payroll piece of it too. They will handle all that and the taxes.
Okay.
And then the unemployment, when it shifts later and anyone's filing unemployment, obviously it gets shifted there.
You said liability, so let's say we had a sub just strike a teacher or strike a student, something like that. They take on that liability and we don't share that liability?
I think on paper, yes. In reality, I'm sure we will be sharing that responsibility.
Okay. All right.
Hey, James, one more question. We talked about, had asked about the subs that we prefer to use or that we have experience with. I'm curious about subs that we don't want to use anymore that we fired within the school. Does this give them another, I think this makes sense, but does this give them another window to apply and show up at one of our buildings at some point, or is there any way to prevent that or not really?
Yeah, we can tell them no on subs. We
Okay.
have the right we reserve that right to not have certain subs in our building.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So we can provide them 2 lists.
Yeah, exactly. A have and have not list, certainly. The next thing on that, the job description, licensed behavioral health professional. As we've digested our surveys and see obvious need for more mental health aspect of care that we need to provide here at school, that's where this role, this position would come in. We've posted the position. We have we're proposed job postings. We haven't talked to any individuals about this position yet, or don't know off the top of our head if we can go find one. But I definitely think this is worth looking into, something that would be benefit. Their home base would be the high school, also spending a lot of time at the middle school, and then being able to help out on consultations with our other counselors at other buildings. We have a small amount of money coming through the CARES Act. Our allocation was $137,000, which would be a good way to try this for a year to see if that's something. Obviously, it's not going to cost that, but to use some of those funds, we received right at $30 per kid. So we received very minimal in the CARES Act funding compared to other schools. I think we were the second smallest in the state per student because it was based on our free reduced, but there is enough in there to offset this counseling piece. And I think that would be a benefit to our kids moving forward. And then any questions on encumbrances, certainly can try to answer those.
Hey, James, on the encumbrances, I think it's it's Kelly Education. Is that the same? So we've got an encumbrance amount of 50,000, and you had mentioned 114,000.
Yeah, that's just to get us started at the beginning of the year with that encumbrance to see where it goes.
All right. So we'll add to that if needed.
Right. And we would be adding to that, no doubt about it.
Move for approval of consent agenda items A through D, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Duffy to approve items A through D. Get a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dustin. Mr. Myatt, can we vote?
Sure. Stephen,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Zach, yes. Dustin,
Yes.
Jared.
Yes. Thank you. Item 4, executive session, vote to convene or not to convene into executive session pursuant to 25 OS 307B1 for the purpose of discussing employment as listed on attachment B. Looking for a motion to convene or not to convene.
I'll make a motion that we do not convene.
Motion not to convene by Zach. Can I get a second?
A second.
Second by Stephen. Can we vote, please?
Stephen,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Zach, yes. Dustin
Yes.
and Jared.
Yes. Okay, well, that means we skip B and C. Move on to item 5, action items. Discuss, take possible action on employment as listed on attachment B. Dr. White, do you have a recommendation?
I recommend approval of that attachment.
Move for approval of attachment B.
Motion by Mr. Duffy,
Second.
second by Mr. Cox. Can we vote?
Stephen,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Zach, yes. Dustin
Yes.
and Jared.
Yes. Item B, discuss, take possible action on bids for high school baseball, softball, tennis complex. I think some of that bid information was in the packet. James, you may have more to add here.
Okay, I sent y'all an update the other day when we opened bids. They ranged all over the place, over a $2 million spread from the low to the high. Once architects started calling those lower ones, the first company that was the low bid, Landmark, it turned out they had made a mistake and asked to get out of their bid. They had made a mistake on their one of their subs on the prices of turf and dirt work, and so moved to the second bid. After a day of them thinking about it, they made the same mistake, moved to the third, made the same mistake, fourth, made the same mistake. So lowest four bidders made the same mistake with the same subcontractor when they got their prices. And so once we look at that gets it down to the fifth one. Once we look at that kind of those mistakes like that, I'm not comfortable moving forward with any of these bids and being solid with them. So my recommendation, we reject each of these bids. We start the rebid process and we come back in August and hopefully have it. We will look at, see if there's any adjustments need to be made in the specs. But just for the sake of accuracy though, I don't feel right accepting any of these bids.
James, I understand it was with the turf, but where do you think the confusion came from? Was it in
The
the,
confusion, it was all the same sub. It was field turf, from what they've told me, was the company. And in the way they packaged their turf and dirt, and then they did just the turf in a separate dirt package. And apparently, I don't know if there was more than those four companies, but with those four companies, that information was confusing apparently to whoever was putting down their bid, and they left the dirt work out of it. And so that's why it's all about 600,000. All of them missed it by about that same amount.
Yeah.
So,
But it wasn't a problem with the specs. It wasn't a problem with the specs, just interpretation of the contractor is what you're
Right.
saying.
yeah, because the other 9 didn't have an issue with that we found out when they were contacting them. It was just those 4, which helped explain that part of that huge spread. The spread goes from a little over 2 million to about $1.5 million difference, which is much more believable than the first one.
Does that raise any concern with the architect, whether or not if this sub is finally used, their quality of work, if their interpretations on construction are wrong?
Yeah, that and it wasn't the sub. When they've looked at it, the sub gave them the accurate price. It was how the whoever was doing the bidding for those people wrote it down, because they'd asked, I guess, to get it in 2 separate packages and a combined deal, and it was how they put those numbers down. Because there's a lot of dirt work. When they did the soil testing, where they found they hit quite a bit of rock on the southwest corner of that.
Who is
there a
it doing
cost?
most of our stuff today? Is it Landmark?
McNatt is on all the projects. We had Landmark when we built the wrestling room and practice gym at the high school. That was Landmark
Okay.
6 years ago, 7 years ago. I'm sorry,
Sure.
I
Jared.
don't remember having a great experience with Landmark.
That would be correct.
Is there a cost to rebid on this?
No, not right now. Nothing we've seen so far. Talking to the
Will
architect.
they have seen each other's numbers?
Yeah, they were all there when we opened the bids the other day, when architects opened the bids. But we are looking at doing a couple of things for some cost, they're working with the engineer about possibly changing some drainage to get the cost down a little bit.
Do you think you'll get
Okay.
the same level of interest? I mean, it's a pretty good group of contractors
so.
bidding. Do you think we'll still have the same kind of?
Yeah, and I think so. And honestly, if you add, let's just say 600,000 to any of those 4 lowest bids, they still get the bid. And it's lower amount than the 5th bidder, if you were. So I think in the long run, we save money by the rebid. With that, we've never had to do that before. We've been fortunate. I mean, it's not completely uncommon. We've just been fortunate not to have to go back to the drawing board and do something. But as far as then saying, okay, go ahead and add your money into your bid, still, it just gets too, I don't think that's the right thing to do. Let's give everybody a fair shot to do it again the next time, since they missed it the first time.
They may get more aggressive the second time.
And I'm hoping that happens too, with being able to see some of those. And so that's my recommendation to reject these. We'll advertise it again this week. The timetable would be our August 10th meeting. We would open bids the week before that. It's a 3-week turnaround.
So legally, we're okay on this?
Yes. Yeah,
I
that's
mean, they can't hold us to anything, or we can at any time pull this back and rebid it again.
we can reject anything. Technically, if we wanted to, we could probably hold them to that incorrect bid, but I think we all know what would end up happening if we did that. That 600,000 is gonna come back one way or another, if not in anything else in the quality of work.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we don't need to take any action on B.
We'll have to we need to reject the bids.
Okay,
I'll make a motion that we reject the bids and submit the projects for rebid.
okay. Motion
Second.
by Zach, can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Steven. Can we vote?
Stephen,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Zach, yes, Dustin,
Yes,
and Jared.
Yes. Okay, discuss and take possible action on 2020-2021 calendar revision.
Okay. When I shared the packet with you, I put kind of a brief description. This kind of goes along with the next item as far as our back to school plan. But I think something that we need to look at first is the calendar revision. Hit the highlights again for this. The changes on this are, it would push the kids' first day of school to August 20th which is 5 days back from the 13th to the 20th, so that following Thursday. We eliminate September 28th as a PD day. That becomes a school day. The end of school goes back 1 day. We eliminated the early releases except for the very last day of school, and the kids will get out early on the last day of school. That puts it at 170 days taught, 10 professional days for our teachers plus a checkout day. What that allows us to do that extra week, obviously there's a lot of preparation going into this year as much as we possibly can. There's going to be some stuff we need to work with our teachers on that our first 3 days of school is not going to, we just don't have time for that. And so there's a lot of protocols, schedule changes, some things like that we need to work through with them, as well as preparing their distance learning plans, or not just when that becomes necessary as a district, but also when it becomes necessary for certain kids to go on what we're going to talk about in a little bit on our hybrid model. Some of those things that grade levels and planning need to go into place. So my recommendation would be to revise the 2021 calendar to reflect that.
So we're basically making those 5 days up with the half days. Some of them.
Yeah. Technically, we're making up 2 days with school days. If you want to put it right down to it, not counting the early release, there's 3 less instruction days with that. But we pick those hours, a lot of those hours back up with those 3 afternoons that we won't be losing as well.
Okay. So we're okay with snow days?
Yeah. And to be honest with you, now with the virtual days and the flexibility we have, weather days are probably a thing in the past, because those will become virtual days, and kids will be logging into Google Classroom on those days.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion to approve the revised calendar.
I'll make a motion, we approve the calendar as presented.
Motion by Stephen,
Second,
second by Zach. Can we vote?
Stephen,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Zach, yes, Dustin,
Yes.
Jared.
Yes. Okay, item D, discuss take possible action on 2020-2021 back to school guidelines.
Okay. Ms. Campbell's going to share a screen so we can pull up our draft document that you have in your packet as well, if you'd rather look at it through there, if you've got it printed out. I've updated a share one in there. The icons and some of those were a little blurry on the first one I did. So does that today. We did replace that in your packet, but it's got the same information. So as we get that on there, can everybody give me a thumbs up if you can see that? Really good. Okay, good deal. All right, let's start scrolling through. Stop me anytime, raise your arm, wave at me if you need to. If I get to going too much, or I will have Ms. Campbell also filling in on some ways. A lot of this stuff is information we had already talked about. We did put it into a document with some little more specifics on it, some things we've been working. And I will tell you, we've had a lot of folks working extremely hard to get this together and to work towards our kids being able to come back to school in August. And I think all of our hope is we have our kids in person in August. And I think that's what we're all working towards, but we know that there's going to be exceptions to that, whether that be kids that can't come back to school for certain reasons, for health reasons, whether that be home situations, whether that be themselves. We also have families that aren't comfortable sending their kids back to school. We understand that, and we have tried to create options for all different scenarios. And the first one we'll talk about is the traditional in-person learning. That's very simple. We're going to do exactly what we've done in the past. It's going to be the traditional. Little to no cases of COVID-19 are existing in our school community. We're going to have in-person instruction. The traditional calendar, traditional school day. We'll be using Google Classroom in school, and we will be ready to transition to hybrid learning when it becomes needed or necessary. Now, for the hybrid learning, it doesn't necessarily have to be school-wide. It could be a student needs to quarantine for whatever reason. They have a different situation at their house. They had a fever. They're showing signs. They're showing symptoms. They switched to this hybrid learning model available for individual students. Their coursework will be via Google Classroom, lessons, virtual support. They can still work with their teachers through that. And this allows for our students to basically in and out depending on what the situation calls for. This also is the same if we have to close school for a period of time, whether that be a day, a week, 2 weeks, whatever. We move to the hybrid. Won't be exactly what we were doing in the distance learning in the spring, because we will be covering new content. There will be grades. It'll expand from just engagement to also to learning new material.
James?
Hey.
Go ahead.
On the little to no cases, do we have a threshold or a matrix that we're going to go by, or are we going to play it by ear? How does that work?
We're developing that, and we're trying to work with the state health department to see exactly what guidelines they're going to have. And that's why I want to be very clear that this is a work in progress, and we will be adding to this as we go. I do think we will get to the point where there are those thresholds in there. We're not there yet, because we don't know what that's going to look like. Is that a percentage? Is that a percentage by class? Is that a percentage by building, by grade level? What that exactly looks like. We've been in a lot of meetings with the state health department, and hopefully we will get that narrowed down over the next months before we come back to see what that looks like. But I do think there will be one, no question about it, and we will have a flow chart to look at if this happens right on down the list.
Hey, James.
Yep.
This is probably a tough question, so there's probably going to be a lot of questions in this. So when we think about, you talked about situations, you talked about different situations about, let's say I get COVID and Lauren is at school. You don't want her at school because she lives with me and I've tested positive. Who does the parent call in that situation? Who tracks the student on how many, how long is it before she comes back? What's the data that she can come back to school? So I'm thinking about all these different situations and scenarios and tracking students. The health department's not going to do that for us.
No.
Are we going to develop some type of situation room or some type of team at the school to track who's out, what's the reason they're out, when are they allowed to return, how long are we going to hold them out because of signs and symptoms, so on and so forth?
Yes, and our nurses, Ms. Campbell, you want to talk about what you all and our nurses have developed with that?
Absolutely. So our school nurses have been working this summer with the county and state health department, as well as the state epidemiologist, to really prepare some guidelines and some specific case scenarios for our staff. And so one thing that will be helpful is we will have a new attendance code in Power School that is for any COVID-related absence. And so that will help us to automatically know if a student is absent due to some COVID reason. And then our nurses have created flow charts for our school secretaries and ways for them to document where a student is, why they are out, and what their expected date of return is. And so, for instance, if we were to say that Lauren needs to be out for 14 days to self-quarantine, then it will already be noted in Power School. So should Lauren show up on day 7, it's going to show that she shouldn't be there. And so then that would alert the teacher or the school office to follow up on that and really find out why Lauren is in school if she shouldn't be. And so that's certainly a process that we're going through, but the nurses have worked tirelessly this summer to really come up with some step-by-step flow charts and protocols as to when these things happen.
What if that same individual rides the bus and before anybody finds out she's not supposed to be there, is already back in school and has already ridden the bus?
Well, sometimes when we have those situations where that's a possibility, then we go ahead and alert our bus drivers that we have a student who should not be boarding today. That is definitely a case-by-case situation, and I certainly can't tell you that it won't happen, because most likely it will happen, but we will do our best to intercept those students and in those situations and make sure that they're not returning to school until they're cleared to do so.
Well, if a student has a temperature when they are, say a nurse takes it at school at 100 degrees, what's the determining factor when they can return to school? Like 2 negative tests or 1 negative test, or?
There is a protocol for when they can return to school, and it's based on health department and CDC guidance. And so, for instance, it will be, has the student been exposed? Has the student had a test? Certainly they can't return until they have a negative test, but they also can't have been showing symptoms or been running a fever for the previous 72 hours, even with a negative COVID-19 test.
So I ask all those questions because we've been doing that here at OG&E now for 4 months. We have a team that has been doing that actively, and we have almost 70 members right now that are quarantined because of them having someone in their family or been in close contact with someone with COVID, and so we have a database where we keep track, just like you're talking about with the absences. And we have that person call and check in on a daily basis, how they're doing. So anyway, I know that's a huge, huge undertaking here where we're at. And I know it's going to end up a huge undertaking at the school with that many students and that many staff members. So I just want to make sure, we're prepared and we've allowed enough people and time for that process to work right, because it's important.
And that's why we just added that third nurse just a little bit ago. And so that will make a tremendous difference to Ashley and Amy. And they've worked extremely hard this summer, put in a lot of time to get here, as well as our new nurse joining them now too. And so I think that helps, having that extra set of person, but I think it's all getting everybody on the same page is going to be the key with it. The second type, so we have traditional, we'll have the hybrid. One I'm going to talk about, and we'll kind of jump back to it, but then we have the full online platform, available grades K through 12. We will have K through 5 and then 6 through 12. We've had 2 Zoom meetings, one for elementary parents that were interested and another for secondary. Those are available in this plan. They can click and watch those meetings and see. We have had some sign up for that. That number has not grown very much yet, but we have had quite a bit of interest in the full online platform, and I do think that number will grow before school starts with it. We will have a teacher, an elementary teacher, that's designated as our online teacher for that K through 5, and right now the numbers will work with one teacher. And we will just have to continue to monitor that to see if that number grows to where there's a need for a second one. Those hours, obviously, when they do that for that teacher, they're going to be flexible. They're going to be working from school, but there will also be work in the evening, depending on the parent schedule and the child and a student in question on when they need help. Of course, that's going to look different in the elementary than it's going to look for the secondary too. The secondary is going to be the same admin modules, but they will be monitored by our own teachers with that. Which gets me to the blended learning option, which we had already approved back in the winter for our high school kids beginning next year to start taking online courses. This just takes that a step further from what we had already approved. At the beginning, we just said on our approval, we'd said kids could take 2 online classes with the possibility for a third one, depending on approval, and they could take their English and history fully online. Right now, we are looking at specific kids that are interested in that and possibly even taking more online classes. And so with that, both of those still allow kids to be involved in extracurricular activities. Even if they're a full online platform, they can still be in the band. They will come for 1 hour of band. And they're still considered full online. They can come for 1 hour athletics and still be full online, but they're able to participate. based on that hour on campus. The blended learning, the same thing. We may have kids that are taking 3 online classes and they may be taking 4. This is just high school only. They may be taking 4 on campus. We may have some that take 4 classes online and 3 on, depending on the age, and juniors and seniors even less than that, especially our kids that are concurrent. Very likely they could never actually be on campus with us on that. And so those are the options that parents are going to have and students are going to have to choose from with this going into next year. Any
Hey,
questions?
James, what's the reason for the cutoff on the blended learning at the 9th grade level? I guess my question is, why not include 7th and 8th?
Well, one thing on the 7th and 8th, they have the options of the full online, Jared, and still if they want to come up and take an extracurricular, they can still do that. The problem becomes with our middle school students is the flexibility in the day of scheduling, because they don't necessarily have a way to get here and back.
Okay,
And
got it.
and like say we have an 8th grader that the parent wants them to go full online, but they still want to play softball. Well, eighth grade softball practice is first hour. They could ride the bus to first hour, take it, parent could pick them up, and they'd be full online at that point, because we only have our same offerings morning and afternoon bus route. So if it falls in that where they can get here for that hour, then that would certainly work out, but they still have to have a ride home.
Yep, got it.
Dang, at least you mind scrolling. All right, physical health. Some of the stuff we've obviously been talking about, temperature, taking it home each morning. We just physically don't think it's possible for us to take a temperature of every student every day and do that correctly at school. And so we are going to ask parents to partner with us and take their temperature every morning. Any student with 100 degrees or higher, please keep them at home. That's why we have the hybrid option. That's why the attendance, they will still be counted in attendance once they log on. And so they won't have that absence against them. And so that won't have to be an issue. And we're saying any student that has over 100 degrees, we do not want them that day in our facility until we figure out what the situation is. They will, like I said, use the hybrid learning. Obviously, regular hand washing, other practices being forced and taught. Our elementary, we will be scheduling hand washing time, even additional ones than we have. We're in good shape at most of our sites. For example, the ECC, with having a bathroom in every pod, that's going to be huge when it comes to this right here. And so with the number of classrooms they're having to share restroom and hand washing stations are a lot smaller than some of our other buildings. Piedmont Elementary, it does help now that we have the new piece in the cafeteria open with those new bathrooms as well. And so we will have those in place. Seating charts, very important when we talk to the state health department and through Canadian County. Seating charts, increased distance between student seating as much as possible. We zoomed with all of our building sites the other day. Any teachers that wanted to join us, we talked about how you could set up your class differently as much as possible. We all know it's not going to be possible if we are in school. We don't have the room or the size classrooms or the facilities to spread every kid out 6 feet all day. That's not going to happen. But we will have seating charts, and they will be around the same group of kids. And the health department, from what they tell us, and that gets into that next student exposure notification. Health department gets notification of a positive test. They tell us they're going to contact us and ask for the seating chart for that classroom. They're going to look at every child that was sitting within a 6-foot radius for longer than 15 minutes, and they're going to contact those parents and say there was a possible exposure. Now, that is what they're saying, that's their goal. I don't think they can keep up with that. I don't think they have the staff to do that. Right now, they will not notify us who the child is unless the parent has signed a release. We have a message in with the health department asking if we get the release from the parent, say at the beginning of the year, our attorney has said it's okay with him. If we have parents sign a release form specifically for COVID-19 testing. We provide it to the health department ahead of time. Then when the health department has a positive test, they can look and see Piedmont schools already have a release signed, and we're waiting to see if they will take that. Then so they can notify us, and then we can begin those notifications. If not, we're really at the mercy of the health department and notification.
You'd be able to provide that, of course, with the classroom, but how about during recess, who all the contacts would be with, and then also in the cafeteria?
Right. That's why we're really working hard, and part of that scheduling is to keep those kids, especially our younger ones, in the same groups as much as possible, in the classroom, at lunch, and really limit the number of kids that are on recess. They're really talking about that at recess, for example, talking about that within that 6-foot bubble for longer than 15 minutes is what they're using right now. For secondary students, it's not going to be a possibility, because an average secondary teacher is going to see between 120 and 140 kids a day in their classroom, in and out, and they're going to be around all different groups of kids throughout the day. So that is where that's going to become very difficult to contact those, or to even know who to contact. The big one, getting down to the mask policy, we get more questions on that than anything. We will be recommending masks for all staff. Masks are required for anyone working in our school, and masks are also required for all students. I understand that that's not necessarily popular among everybody, and that's probably split down the middle. However, I think we all know that the best practice, if we're going to be able to stay in school, is to do that. Now, are our young ones going to struggle early? Of course. We teach our kids, our teachers do a great job with our kids of teaching them every day, and I think that's something we can certainly work with our younger ones about their mask. Are we going to be at 100% of kids wearing them correctly every day? Certainly not. But if we're at 80, 85, 90%, we're 90% better off than we were without them. And I think all of our folks and all our families deserve the respect of us trying to do everything we can to keep them safe. I do think this will be before school starts. I think this will be a state mandate that masks are required. I think that is coming. And so recommendation will be we start preparing for that now. Exceptions, of course, if we have any medical reasons for students, or developmental reasons why that's inappropriate, we certainly can address that and look at options such as a face shield or things like that. That is why the good thing about also having the online learning option, if someone's completely adamant about not wearing a mask at school, we have the online option for that, where that shouldn't be a concern. School supply list be updated to do that. Obviously, mask on a bus, that's where, and also that's going to be that same before we will get the question, what happens if that 7-year-old is at the bus stop and they do not have a mask to get on the bus? Do we leave them setting? And we're going to explain to our bus drivers, obviously, about common sense and looking about what we can do for disposable masks. That's going to be just somewhat limited due to the financial impact, and also we have many coming in, but that is not a complete endless supply of disposable masks. But we will have that, especially early in the year, and then a lot of reminders as far as that need to be. And if it gets to be an issue and it's repetitive, we will contact the parent, of course, and try to get some help with that.
So I think it's also important, James, on the mask piece, to reiterate we're following the CDC recommendations.
Correct.
We fall back on them. I mean, that they're recommending facial coverings, and that's what we're following. Correct. I think you made a great point that we're doing our best to look out for their child's safety and health.
It's like we told all our teachers, we don't want to look back and say we should have done something to keep our kids safe and we didn't try that option. I think anything that we have available to us to try to make this work and keep our kids and our faculty healthy, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't do that. And I just think this is one of those things that's a must going forward if we're ever going to come out of this with any sense of normalcy. Transportation.
I've got 3 comments on the mask before you leave it. Is one, I think on any that we purchase, we need to be very cognizant of where they come from, country of origin. If you've seen some of the film on some that are made overseas, they're thrown on dirty floors, thrown in a box, you know, not the best sanitary conditions. You know, of course, preference, in my opinion, would be American made to be utilized. But the other thing is that I think it's very important that we have masks available for the students. You know, they're going to have a strap break on them, especially the younger kids are going to be pulling on them. You're going to have kids that sneeze and fill them full of snot, to be straight up about it. You know, they're going to need another mask. There's going to be situations come up constantly where they're needed, you know, used in sports, and they come back and they can't even breathe through it because it's, you know, sweaty. So I do think we need to have them there. And also, I feel like we need to have a policy along here with logos on those masks. If people are going to be buying themselves, we're going to have everything from, you know, political advertisements to, you know, no telling what on these masks that come to school. If it's just up front, you know, you don't later telling somebody, you know, you can't wear that mask, you know, at least put it up front into the practices that go out to the public and our patrons to see.
Okay.
James, I was just going to make 2 comments on the mask thing too. One, which I think it is the right way to go. So that, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. But just one concern is having some sort of, and I trust our teachers. I trust, you know, you talked about bus drivers not knowing what to do, or maybe counseling them on what to do if a kid shows up at a bus stop without one. Not that you guys haven't thought of this, but there's going to be scenarios on day one where kids take them off, or kids refuse to wear them, or some mom and dad told them to do this. And, you know, this just has it has the opportunity to blow up. Again, I think it's the right decision, but I think whatever your training you're considering with teachers and others, you might triple that, because this is going to be tested. I think Greg's point's a valid one about the, you know, the stuff on the mask, you know, that there's going to be a very limited option, you know, but my biggest concern is how teachers handle that, how they handle those situations, because that just has a great, there's just a great opportunity there for something to blow up into something big, especially when I do think there are probably other schools around us that are recommending it, but not requiring it. And so that's, you know, there's going to, you know, like you said, criticism with that and people testing that. The other thing is Hoffmeister's latest press briefing or whatever it was the other day, where he talked about, you know, that they may require it. I'm just curious if you think there's anything we can do. I think it's complete cowardice, frankly, that the Department of Education hasn't come out and said that yet, because it puts us all in a terrible spot, to be frank. I think it puts us in a terrible position that they haven't come out and just mandated it when they know it's the right thing to do. And so if there's something we can do to help push that, you know, I don't know what that would be. I don't know if you guys are having regular conference calls with the Department of Ed or not. But personally, I think it's ridiculous that they haven't come out and just mandated it now, because what's going to happen is, you know, folks like us who mandate this are going to get a crazy amount of criticism, and folks who don't are going to get a crazy amount of criticism. And I see that as a way for the Department of Education to stand behind, you know, schools and our teachers and our administrators. So I just make that comment to say, if there's something we can do, somebody we can talk to, I think it's the word, I won't use the word here, but publicly, but I think it's a bunch of crud that they haven't come out and done that already.
I completely agree. Everything about this COVID-19 from the beginning has been just keep pushing it downhill, from the federal government to the state government to the local governments to now us, and now we're the last one. It doesn't roll any farther. We have to do what's right for our kids and our teachers and our families here. We've hoped over the summer that they would come out with some sort of guidance, other than just suggestions, so to speak, and just say, this is how we're all going to go back to school. But up to this point, that hadn't happened. I'm still hopeful it will, and I think it might. But no, I don't know what they're waiting on. The same way with the health department that we mentioned earlier about the number of cases before we close down, and those type things. Basically, it's let's open school and everybody work out a plan and that best suits your needs, and that's what we've been trying to do with it. As far as I agree on the mask it's nothing easy about any of this, and it's certainly not going to be about masks. We don't want it to become a discipline issue. We don't want it to be a deal where we're having to discipline students over this. Like say, when there becomes a certain age, if you don't want to wear it, that's fine. We have an online option for you. We're not going to debate the merits of it. We know that option's out there, and as far as messages on them, we have that same issue with shirts and hats now, and messages on those, and I think we can follow those same dress codes we have with those things. And if we need to clarify it more, we certainly can do that. But I think you're right, Dustin. We don't want it to become a disciplinary issue. We want it to, let's all do this because it's the right thing and it's the best thing for our kids and our families. And that stuff about, kids asymptomatic, but let's remember who kids have at home and who they're going to take it home to. And we have students that live with grandparents, live with their parents, or have a condition that they need to be protected from. And so we want to do everything we can to protect our kids here from them going home and doing that, as well as their own health.
Yeah, James, I'll stop after this, but the only other thing I would say too is I'll be interested to see, and you guys will have a feel for it. We won't, we're not up there as you talk to your teachers, but I had somebody reach out to me, a teacher at our school reach out against wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I just got a random text, and the person was not, they weren't crazy. I mean, they weren't unprofessional, but it was just, it's impossible. It's tough for us to teach with these things on. I hope you'll, not, and I actually, responded and said, we're waiting for your recommendations, but I wear one at work. I mean, this is the only, I've got a 10 by 10 wall in here that I don't have to wear one. And if I walk out of that door, I do. So I explained that to them as well. But I'll be curious to see what type of reception you get from your teachers. I'm sure most of them support it. Most of what I've seen they do, but
we talked to them Thursday. Like I said, we ran 7 Zoom meetings, one for each building. We did talk to some of our early childhood teachers. We've also we ordered everybody a mask, but we've also ordered a face shield, because there's going to be some times, especially in those lower grades, where a mask is not feasible, and some of our speech paths, working with kids and our reading specialists and our classroom teachers, where they need to have that, need to be able to see their mouth, and we have options for face shields and that we've ordered too for those situations, and just talk about the distance we're going to use and things like that. So there are some adjustments for certain subject grade levels that we understand that we're going to have to work through.
what about, and James, one more question. I'm sorry. I just thought of this. What about special education, maybe let's say moderate special education students that may not understand, the need to wear a mask, and just curious about what you're thinking there.
Right. And that's where our teachers do a good job of working with our kids. If there's a developmental reason, that's why we put that in there, that a child shouldn't wear a mask. We're certainly going to make adjustments, whether that be that we need to go to the shield, or we need to look at how they're isolated in smaller groups and social distancing, those type things. But we're going to do our best to explain to our kids the need for it and how we're all looking out for each other as we move forward.
Thank you.
So something that we remind our people is, social distancing is still the most important. The mask is really secondary. It's when you can't distance yourself 6 feet. So that's just sometimes when you have a mask on, it's like, okay, now I can do anything, right? Well, that shouldn't be the case. And it's easy to forget. And we all sit and talk about how easy it's going to be, but this is going to be hard. I promise you, it's going to be very, very, very hard. I've witnessed it happen here at the office, and it takes a lot of discipline and effort and measuring how we're performing to those guidelines on a weekly basis to keep it up. And so I just challenged the leadership team that when we put these things in writing, the expectation is that they're followed, and we've got to measure how they're followed, and we got to provide feedback how they're followed, so that we make sure that we're doing the right thing. Because as soon as you put it on paper, the parents have an expectation that leaders in the district are going to make sure these are followed. So it's just a reminder.
I
It's
agree.
hard.
Cleaning and sanitation protocols. Sean, you mind talking about those? Lisa, if you'll scroll just a little bit.
I can't, let me pull this up real quick. Okay, so can you hear me? Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
We have, we've ordered some electrostatic machines, which is a one-step disinfecting system, kills 99.9% of bacteria in 5 seconds, kills cold and flu viruses in 2 minutes or less. Students and teachers can immediately enter the area after treatment is complete. Buses will be sprayed with the electrostatic machines, a minimum of twice a day, but we're working on a system where we're actually doing that 4 times a day, and not just before the morning and afternoon bus routes, but between the elementary and secondary bus routes as well. We've ordered a lot of, different types of chemicals, and we've ordered motion sensor sanitizer stations that are on their way. We sat down throughout this week and just getting a really strong inventory of what we have and where we need to be, and made sure that we've got a really strong amount in stock, and which we do. And we're really, I don't know what I'm trying to say. We're just trying to make sure that we're prepared and ready to go. And we've been doing this since March when we ordered the electrostatic machines that came in just last week. They were ordered before spring break as we were preparing for this. So, we've done a lot, way back in March.
And along those lines, each Jana King franchise is required to have the electrostatic machine as well. And they will be using those every evening to disinfect our classrooms as well on a daily basis. We've amended our contract with them to reflect that. So
Just a word of caution. The chemicals that we purchase, I know we get the SDSs on them, Sean.
Yes.
But you will run out of the chemical that you originally start using, and you'll change those out with different chemicals. We just need to make sure we're reviewing those SDSs.
Okay.
Because you will have individuals that have reactions to some of the chemicals, and we're gonna have to react as a district.
Absolutely.
It will happen. Everybody's different. Everybody reacts different to the chemicals, and we've had it happen here. So I'm just saying, be prepared for it.
Okay, that's a great point.
okay, any other questions on the cleaning? Okay, Lisa, you scroll, please. All right, student mental health. Lisa, you want to talk about that a little bit, and along with what we did earlier about the counselor?
Absolutely. So, our survey revealed that there was an increased concern about the mental health of our students, and especially in regards to their lack of social interaction at school. And as I think we've discussed before, our site counselors have really looked at the process of distance learning in the spring and some areas that we need to improve in so that kids can more easily access their school counselors for small group or one-on-one sessions, and that has been difficult in the past. So we've changed some things on the technology side of our platform so that counselors will be able to contact students and students will be able to contact counselors a little bit easier. We also continue to have the Stop It app for students if they need assistance and are afraid to reach out in person. They certainly can do that, and then we can link them to a resource for them. We continue to monitor our student accounts even over the summer for disturbing searches. When they're logged into their Google account, then when those disturbing searches are performed, then we automatically get an email and can follow up and provide support for them, whether that be contacting a parent or sometimes contacting law enforcement and having them go make a home visit to make sure that that student is safe. Our counselors have worked hard to also inform our teachers, and as we return to school, we'll be looking at what are some signs of trauma in children and due to this COVID-19 situation, and how can we respond to that. We're also looking at more and more ways to be able to connect families to outside resources when they need. So the counselors are doing a great job of working together. Dr. Nation over at Stone Ridge has a lot of experience in trauma-informed student support, and so she's also sharing her knowledge with our staff, and so we're hopeful that we can provide as much support as possible to our students over these coming months as things are uncertain.
All right, Lisa, do you want to continue on into special ed?
You bet. So we've been meeting with, obviously Kylie and I have meeting with special ed teachers and other people throughout the district. Our leadership council, it also has special ed representatives, and then many parents that are so willing to provide their input and their approaches to things, and that's been very helpful. So some of the things that we learned through distance learning is one, often it has become much easier for parents as they've missed a lot of work already, most likely, that we will continue conducting our special services meetings virtually. That helps us twofold. One, parents aren't needing to rearrange their work schedules and things like that to come to the school. We can do that virtually. It also keeps guests and visitors out of our buildings so that we don't add more germs and risks to our students and teachers' environment. The students using the hybrid learning model will also continue to receive their accommodations and modifications virtually. Their case manager will be responsible for making sure that that is happening. Students who are using the 100% online learning model will have access to accommodations through those online modules. And then a special education case manager will be assigned to kind of track progress, make sure that that student is supported in all of their varied classes. And then related services, one of the things that some of the feedback we got from our parents is that, there were times that not being able to have access to face-to-face related services was very difficult for their student. So in some cases, we'll be able to provide those virtually. And certainly if a student is being quarantined due to an, exposure, then we would want to provide those virtually. But for a student who maybe has opted for that 100% online option to lower their risk, then just as a student can come to school to participate in an extracurricular activity, they also would be able to schedule a time to come to school and receive those related services. And again, that being when they're not being quarantined due to health, specifically a risk in our outbreak, or that we don't have a school closure due to high COVID-19 positive numbers. So I think that will be very helpful. We received great feedback from our parent group to make that modification and to be able to provide that. And then as we are coming back to school, parents and guardians will be contacted to kind of talk about where their child is and what next steps need to take place, and what that looks like for each individual child. So we're hopeful that we can be pretty much on board with as far as being ready when students show up, and that extra week will certainly give teachers a little more time to make those contacts.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions on either one of those sections? All right. Extracurricular activities, I mentioned that earlier. We've kind of touched on that. Kids can still participate in extracurricular, either in the blended or in the fully online model. We will work with those kids on an individual basis. And then I think that will give kids just another option, and parents just one more option if they want to keep them home, if they still want to be able to participate in certain things. I think that allows for that. Lunch, recess, more. We will still be having Wildcat Clubhouse for our families. It will obviously be looking different as well. It will follow the same guidelines. We will be looking to also to spread those kids out and across the building a little bit more as well. Self-serve options at lunch no longer will be available. We're going to reduce the number of touch points, salad bars, condiments, etc. Recess scheduling is going to look different, more recess periods, so they can spread out farther, and kids that may not have their same recess time they've had in the past, but they will get that throughout the day. We will just have to rotate that around. Students should bring their own water bottles, not use water fountains. We do, and some of our buildings have the refillable water stations that are touchless, but the actual water fountains will be closed, and water bottles will be encouraged, certainly.
Hey, James,
Yes, sir.
quick question on that. We shut all of our refillable stuff down
Okay.
just because they take the lid off of it and they stick it up in there where their lips have been on it, and then the next person sticks their bottle where their lips have been on it.
Yeah,
So
we
we
just
just,
close them all down.
my suggestion would be shut them all down, and then if somebody has to, if we need to provide bottled water on occasion, just a thought.
Yeah.
Because they're going to stick their bottle open with the top off up in there, and it's a touch point. So.
Okay. We can certainly make that adjustment. Shared supplies, that'll look a little different in elementary, where before when they've all the classroom supplies have gone in and teachers have taken those up and then handed them out as needed. That's going to be more designated. We're not going to have those shared supplies. And so students will have their set of school supplies. Lunch guest, until further notice, there will be no lunch guest permitted, which gets in the next one, the school visitors. Just to reduce exposure, we're not going to allow visitors inside our school buildings, and that's going to be an adjustment. And I know no one likes that. We certainly don't like that as far as our Wildcat wake-ups. We will look for other ways to recognize these students for our parents, meet the teacher nights. Those things are things that are going to have to go away until this all is behind us. And so we're looking for ways. We've talked to our teachers, start coming up with creative ways to introduce themselves to their parents and to their kids and to show off their room. We'll be working through that over the next month, and that's what we'll be doing in those extra days before school starts, doing that to where they can introduce themselves to parents as well, coming into the building especially. It's so vitally important for our early childhood too, with that.
What are the cafeterias going to look like as far as number of kids that are there? I know I'm somewhat familiar with, being at the middle school and then also at Stone Ridge, where, the way it is in the past is we couldn't maintain any kind of social distancing, probably not even 2 feet.
Right.
And they're there for more than 15 minutes in contact. Are you going to have more lunch periods as far as dividing the kids up, or what's that going to look like?
Yes, and as far as like you mentioned, middle school is already we've already have scheduled in for four lunch periods in there, which cuts those kids obviously down from how many you were there in. And so elementary.
What they have here?
I think they had 2 last year. I want to say 2 last year off the top of my head. But go to 4 right now. We're looking to see if that even needs to expand more and what we can do to spread it out and to get additional tables.
Also, the other elementaries also to ensure that social distancing or cafeteria.
And we're kind of back and forth on. I know Stone Ridge is the only one left that has the long tables. If it's easier to, if we need to get them the round tables as well, to where we can spread kids out a little bit even further with that. But we always have the option. We're reserving the option to always go into the classrooms if we need to, if we see it's not going to work out, if a certain class needs to eat in their classroom. We've already talked to Sodexo about that, the possibility of moving towards that. But as far as how many kids, all first grade won't go to lunch at the same time. Those kids are going to be spread out. limiting the time that they are in line, how they're in line, and those type things.
On Wildcat Clubhouse, on those, I've had some people express some concerns of the student employees that whether or not they would be tested coming in to take care of the littler ones. I kind of have to agree. I think maybe that might be a good way, you know, to good thing to do. It wouldn't take much to test them as they come in and ensure that, you know, we're not doing a community spread with an employee of ours.
Are you talking about their temperature?
Yes.
Yes, they will go through the screens when they come in. Any employee comes through the door is going to go through the screen. Yes, they will.
Student.
Yes, all students will when they get there.
Yeah.
And it'll all be logged with them.
Good.
Okay, next page. All right, there's we kind of already went over this about the exposure. These are the obviously CDC recommendations moving forward that we discussed. And then, Lisa, if you want to move on, please, on down through there. We get into our frequently asked questions, our FAQs. Most of this we've touched on as we went through. We tried to think, is there anything that people may want some follow-up questions to that, time requirements, cutoff date to opt into full online. We're asking any current student who wants to enroll fully online to apply by August 1st. Links to all that stuff is in our document. When will we switch to hybrid school district calendar change? This reflects what we've spoken about earlier, the pushback of the week. And so I'll answer any other questions that maybe we didn't share. One thing on the device, technology, student does not have a device, they can use it at home. How can I help? We will try to help as much as possible with that. We did write a grant through that CARES Act. Like I mentioned earlier, we received very little funding in the CARES Act. Just to kind of put that, we received $137, where Western Heights down the road received, I believe it was 1.3 million. And so kind of puts it in perspective of how little we did get help on that. So we did also apply for the grant with that came along with that. And we were not awarded a grant from the State Department of Education. That would have been for $300,000 for devices for early childhood students, pre-K through first grade. We were not granted that. And so we're looking at other ways. We're looking at our budget where we can squeeze here and there for possible more devices for those students to have when hybrid learning does become necessary. We are in pretty good shape down to third grade. We've made those plans, and I think we get penalized on these grants moving forward because we have done our due diligence up to this point to be to the point we're at, where others maybe not necessarily have been in that position. And so I think that we're still trying to find out where our score ranked on that to why we didn't, but we haven't been given that information yet. But moving forward that, we're going to look to help any kids with devices, just like we did last time. Lauren and our IT team did a great job of getting devices to the homes of those kids if it becomes necessary. The sharing devices, we're looking at that. Obviously 7 through 12, there's no sharing. And we're going to see what we can do at the intermediate to eliminate some of that. And then in our 3rd and 4th grade, that we should be able to do that where there's not a device share. But I think all in all, the main thing I want everybody to get out of this is we're going to do everything we can to keep our students and our teachers and our families safe. We were going to always act out of an abundance of caution for their safety. I don't think there's anything we do that's more important than that. And nothing else matters if we can't keep our kids healthy and safe. And so if doing our part and us all wearing our mask or what is necessary to do that, I think that's a small price for us to pay to get everyone healthy and get this behind us at some point.
James, I think the book, the the book that was put together, the guidelines, very professional. I think it reads well, simple, easy to follow. So whoever put that together and worked on it, really appreciate the work because it's really professional, looks nice.
Riley and Lisa and a lot of folks put a lot of time and effort into this to get it right. So a lot of hard work and effort, and we still have a long ways to go, but we have a few weeks here to get some other things pinned down. And I think one thing, and we all want to be very clear at is if you all choose to approve this, I think we need to do it with the caveat in there that this is subject to change, and there may be some adjustments we have to make in this document that aren't necessarily, we may not have time-wise be able to come back and present to the board. There may be some adjustments that have to be made based on whether that be CDC guidelines, State Department guidelines, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think we stated it in there, didn't we?
Yes. It's always, it's very subject to change, yes.
We ought to put it on the bottom of the front page just so it stands out. So when parents read it.
Yeah, it's on the first page with any writing on it. Plans and guidelines are subject to change in every page thereafter. So we'll put it on the cover too.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to be flexible. I can tell you, this will be ever changing.
And it's going to be like we've never had. I mean, and if 2 months ago, things looked a lot different. It looked a lot different a month ago than it does now, with cases spiking and it getting worse again. I don't know what it's going to look like a month from now. It's just, in retrospect, looking back, we would have had our graduation a month ago instead of this week. So you just can't predict.
Still going to have it this week.
Do what?
We're still going to have it this week.
As of right now, I've left a message with Mayor Holt to make sure no conditions are going to change the scissor tail, and I'm waiting to hear back from him as well. But
All right, so we're on item D. I guess, Dr. White, you're making a motion that we approve the Piedmont Public Schools back-to-school guidelines as presented, with a couple of modifications that we talked about.
yes, sir. Subject to change.
The water thing, I'm not hung up on that. We may want to look at ADA laws or rules.
We will check to see if there's any CDC guidelines with that too.
Yeah.
James, what about notification to parents? That's the only other question I had. Once we approve this, when are you going to let parents know?
Well, I think it will be known as probably already right now, what we've talked about, but I think we will finalize this document. And if we don't get it sent out on social media, it'll be first thing in the morning and be released on, we'll email it out as well as put it on all our social media platforms.
Awesome, thanks.
All right, I'm looking for a motion.
Are we going to add anything that allows James the ability to make changes to this in the event that guidelines are changed and we don't have time to meet to make changes to this?
We can. I really think that's gonna be needed. I think you're gonna have, you may have stuff pop up in the middle of the month that we've got to make decisions based on State Department or CDC recommendations, or even for the best interest of our students or staff.
And I think we need to have something in there that states that.
It's in the motion.
You want to make a motion, Stephen, with that in there?
Sure. I'll make a motion. We approve the back to school guidelines as discussed, with the addition of giving Superintendent Dr. White the ability to make changes that are needed on an emergency basis to facilitate a safe environment for our students and staff.
All right, motion from Stephen. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Zach. Can we vote?
Stephen,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Zach, yes, Dustin,
Yes.
Jared.
Yes. Hey, James, before we adjourn, I just want to make sure have you sent out where we're supposed to show up and what time on Thursday?
I have not. I will. I'll send all that out probably tomorrow. And then if anything adjusts once I am able to speak to those folks there, but I will send all that out.
Okay, thank you.
What is the recommended attire?
I'm thinking the temperature is probably going to be rather warm, and so I will put that in the message. But I think short sleeve shirts are appropriate. No suits.
Did you say shorts?
Yeah.
Cutoffs, flip flops.
Feel free. You won't be the only one, probably.
And probably some sunscreen, I would imagine, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Some of us may want to hit it a little bit.
All right, item 6. Adjournment. Looking for a motion.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
Motion by Dustin, second by Stephen. Can we vote?
Stephen,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Zach, yes, Dustin,
Yes.
Jared.
Yes. Hey, I appreciate leadership's administration's work on everything. I know it's been a taxing summer with this COVID thing and really trying to figure out the best for the districts and our students. We're writing a new script here, right? So I just appreciate everybody's hard work and professionalism and just the way that we've handled this as a district. So
Thank y'all. Appreciate everybody.